Manchester City trained on Tuesday morning before Real Madrid as a number of players think about their futures for the January window. Hugo Viana reflected proudly at the end of his first summer in charge of Manchester City's recruitment that the goalkeeping department was the best around. "We have 4 great goalkeepers in James, Donnarumma, Marcus and Ortega, which was important for the club and the dressing room, and I don't see any team stronger than us on the goalkeeping position, so we are really happy with them," he said. It shouldn't have been a surprise that their 4 keepers trumped everyone else, given it is at least one more than most clubs would care about. Everyone wants a strong number 1 and a strong number 2 to challenge them alongside a dependable number 3, but it isn't easy to maintain that, because if your number 2 is good enough they should want to be a number 1. That was always the case with Stefan Ortega, who pushed Ederson during the treble year and then made that save at Spurs in the penultimate game of the 2024-25 season to help make more history. The opportunities came to replace Ederson last term, but Ortega did not take any of them, and rather than head off in summer to be a number 1 elsewhere with a full year before the World Cup, he stayed put. That was despite City signing James Trafford, who arrived back at the Etihad with visions of becoming number 1 for club and country for the next decade, and heard nothing from the club to suggest otherwise. It turned out, however, that City had also been trying to sign Gianluigi Donnarumma all summer as well, and they completed that deal on deadline day to bump Trafford down to number 2. Marcus Bettinelli is the new Scott Carson as the reliable number 3 that never plays. Both Trafford and Ortega want a move in January to get more games, but City are unlikely to sanction exits for both without a replacement. That leaves the prospect of at least one unhappy keeper when the winter window closes. Viana spoke back in September of the importance of Trafford for the future, despite also talking about how many years Donnarumma has to give at just 26, and while all 4 goalkeepers trained on Tuesday morning before Real Madrid, only 3 of them trained with the goalkeeping coaches. Trafford was alongside Donnarumma and Bettinelli, being put through their paces by specialist coaches Xabi Mancisidor and Richard Wright, while Ortega was with the outfield players taking part in rondos. It was glaringly obvious to see which player City would rather keep in their goalkeeping ranks. That does not mean that Trafford will definitely stay or that Ortega will definitely leave, but the hierarchy could not be clearer. Ortega's route to a City exit will be much easier, and cheaper, to navigate than the man who arrived in summer and took the number 1 shirt. Manchester City face Real Madrid in the Champions League on Wednesday night, and the Blues have been handed an early boost. Kylian Mbappé is a doubt for Real Madrid ahead of their Champions League fixture with Manchester City after the forward missed training on Tuesday. The first 15 minutes of Real's training session at their Valdebebas training ground were open to the media, and Mbappé was absent, having picked up an injury in Sunday's shock Bernabeu defeat to Celta Vigo. Mbappé fractured a finger during the first half of the game but played on and completed the full 90 minutes. Reports in the Spanish media said he had complained of pain in the finger on Monday, and the fact he has now missed training means he could be missing against City. That would be a major blow to Real and their under-pressure head coach Xabi Alonso, who had to bat off questions about his future in Tuesday's press conference. Alonso didn't report an injury to Mbappé during his media briefing, but the questions focused on whether he felt he had the support of the dressing room and his talks with President Florentino Perez. Real have won just 2 of their last 6 games in all competitions, but Mbappé is having an excellent individual season. He has scored 10 of Real's last 16 goals and has 25 in 21 games across the campaign. Manchester City players are battling to win back the Premier League but also have extra motivation for the rest of the season. Manchester City players were all teasing each other about who would be celebrating at the upcoming Qatar World Cup when Pep Guardiola felt the need to intervene. He wasn't interested in them returning their focus to the club that pays their wages, he just wanted to tell them all how wrong they were. They were in the locker room chatting about the candidates to win the World Cup, and they mentioned Portugal, France, all the teams from here, Europe, remembered striker Julian Alvarez. I didn't say anything. And Guardiola told them, "Do you know who has the best chance? He pointed at me." Alvarez was speaking after Guardiola's prediction had come true. Argentina did indeed emerge victorious on a night that would have consequences for one of their biggest stars. Erling Haaland broke the Premier League goal-scoring record and helped City win the treble, only to finish as runner-up at the Ballon d'Or awards to an MLS attacker by the name of Lionel Messi. Haaland would have loved to have had the chance to rival Messi at the World Cup, but Norway hadn't qualified. The striker did lay on his sadness for a fun video with Sky promoting the return of the Premier League, but he also made clear how disappointed he had been. "I've been at home, a bit mad that I've not been at the World Cup," Haaland said after the first league game back. "I recharged my batteries. Watching other people score to win games at the World Cup triggered, motivated and irritated me. I'm more hungry and more ready than ever." Haaland has now made sure he will be at the 2026 World Cup after spearheading Norway's successful campaign, and he will go head-to-head with France's Kylian Mbappé in the group stages as both battle for the next Ballon d'Or. Nobody can rule Messi out again though, given Argentina's potential and the weight that is given to the biggest stage in world football. It was in Qatar a few years ago that Josko Gvardiol cemented his reputation as one of the finest defenders in world football, despite suffering first-hand to Messi's brilliance as the forward dragged him half the length of the pitch before putting him and Croatia out of their misery. First up this time for Croatia is England, and as of Saturday Gvardiol hadn't even broached the subject with most of the England boys. "Not yet. Maybe a month before it starts," he said. "I'm happy that I'm going to see them. Hopefully all of them will be in the team. I spoke to Calvin this morning. I remember my first Euros, his first Euros we played against each other in the first game. Calvin was there, John, Phil, Kyle. I was playing as a full back, so I was on Kyle's side." Gvardiol knows the chat is coming though, and as the World Cup approach it is going to be the subject of many discussions in a dressing room where nearly every player will be going. Not everyone is guaranteed though, be it, somehow, Phil Foden for England, Nico Gonzalez and Rodri for Spain or Savinho for Brazil. Those players should have extra motivation to do everything they can for City in the coming months, because as hard as being left out of a national team squad for the World Cup, there will be even more pain on top of that, having to hear the excited chatter about it from the rest of their teammates in the dressing room and the group chats.